I wanted to give you a quick breakdown of the new stuff we've added with Memoir and how to approach it. Essentially, the way that you want to think about a memoir is you want to start with the lesson, which is honestly another way to think about this is the theme, which is what you do when you write a story. What is the point of this? And it usually has some particular lesson. And the lesson is divided into two major scenes. So there's one scene where there's a aha moment where you realize a lesson. And then the resolution is the action that you take to turn that lesson into reality. So those are two obvious scenes you're going to have in a memoir. And then you reverse engineer from there. There's a bunch of stuff that happens. And then you have the call to adventure or the inciting incident, the bad thing that happened. And the bad thing that happened that resulted in all of the mess, which ended up leading to you having this realization, which then led to this new action, which then led to this new version of yourself. And so we briefly talked about this in the previous class, very quickly, just this great middle. Some people call it fun and games. So there's a bunch of different things that are going to happen, a bunch of trials. And so I've organized it. We've added a memoir section to the app. If you log in, you can go to memoir. There's a story generator, outline wizard, and a ghostwriter for memoir. We created a whole series of apps just for memoirs. The big idea is in order. So the first thing that you're going to do whenever you're writing a memoir is what is the lesson or the universal theme? And you want to say it in essentially one sentence if you can. What is the thing that you learned? I learned that forgiveness is better than revenge, or I learned that you have to take care of yourself first, or I learned that family is more important than anger. I learned that whatever it is that you learn. Then what taught you that lesson? Some event that happened. Oh, I was in high school competing for the state championship on the tennis team, to a time I got a divorce while my dad was sick and dying. I had this realization I needed to move to Europe. What taught you that lesson? And if you remember from previous lessons about memoirs, is that they're not autobiographies. So they're not going to be your whole life. They're going to be a time period. So what was the event? What was the epoch? What was the beginning, middle, and end? Is it a trip that you went on? A trip you went to Italy? Was it a weekend that happened with your family? You could write a memoir. The evening I met my wife. I could write a whole memoir on that. So essentially, what's the time period? Okay. For example, let's say I wanted to write one about the time I met my life. I could say the universal theme is there is a one. The lesson is there is a one. So some people think that it's random. Some people think that, oh no, there's not really the one. There is the one. And then it's a conspiring of that night and how everything happened. And then when I realized when I met her, I had that aha moment and realized she was the one. And then you could actually tell the rest of the story really quickly. Oh, by the way, we've been married 10 years. What's the time constraint? When did you have the actual realization? So that's the climax. When did you turn that realization into action? It's one thing to have knowledge, it's another thing to actually do something. Once you have these scenes, you're going to want to go, where was the start? What's the inciting incident that started all of this? Or in Joseph Campbell's words, is what's the call to adventure? What is the beginning? You want to identify that. This is where we haven't talked about this before. So this is a little technique that I use whenever I'm coming up with like a true story, a memoir. This is where I can't do this for you, but what I do is I ask myself, what are 10 memories that I have? This could be physical, emotional, problems, flashes, people, sentences. You want to come up with at least 10 of that time period. What are 10 things you remember? And they can't be in the same scene. Let's say I remember when I met my wife, her coming over and sitting on the couch wearing a blue dress. So that I can't say, oh yeah, and then also this is how her hair looked. And also I remember what the couch looked like. That's the moment I saw her and I remember this one image of her. You can think about and try to remember all sorts of different parts of that one scene, but that is one scene. So the fact that you remember her hair was up, she had a blue dress on, and you remember that the couch was brown, and you remember that she was drinking the lemonade, it doesn't count as four different memories. That counts as one memory, one scene. So you're going to have these little bubbles. The entry point could be a physical description. Oh, I remember that time when I felt this. Oh, I remember when my dad hit me. I remember the call from my sister and she said, blah, blah, blah. Oh, I remember the time that we were sitting at the computer and we bought the ticket. I remember the interview and what the person was wearing and the beginning of the interview. Oh, I remember driving into the city and for the first time, blah, blah, blah. So it doesn't, whatever it is, the flash is different entry points. But once you have the thing, you can do this in lists or whatever that scene. And you can start brainstorming different things about it. Blue dress, brown hair, eyes, different lemonade thing I said to her. This is actually a true story. The first thing that I said to my wife was I would never be her friend. I was such a cocky little thing when I was young. But I remember thinking she was the prettiest girl at my university. And when I met her, I was just so you know, we're never going to be friends. You're too pretty. This is one little epoch, one little scene. You can do this in a Google Doc, Word, you can do this on a notebook paper, you can do this in Excalibur like me, like a weirdo or whatever. But this is a scene. And then what you're going to want to do is have at least, okay, they don't have to be in order, they can be flash. They just have to be related to the larger lesson. The lesson I learned with this overall story was everything is reverse engineered from the climax and the resolution. I realized my dad loved me all along and I should have done what I wanted. You only live once and you should go after your dreams. Maybe the start was when my dad got sick. Does this make sense? So that's the beginning would be when my dad got sick. Maybe there's a couple scenes before that, which is the relationship that you have with your dad or something, why you're afraid of him or something. But that's all going to end up being at the end where he said, oh yeah, by the way, let's say he was on his deathbed or something and he was, you should really move to New York and do what you want. Oh my God, I didn't realize he thought that the whole time. I was afraid. I thought he was going to judge me. The realization I had was, oh my God, I should just do what I want because even the people I think are going to judge me are actually supportive. Gerald, I'm not going to get into the apps until the boot camp. You can mess around with them. If you go to the Memoir tab, there's a bunch of apps here that we've added, but I'm going to go through them one by one in the boot camp for the first time with everyone. You have these 10 memories. And so the 10 memories from this idea shouldn't be, oh yeah, I remember that time with my sister at Six Flags and we were scared of the roller coaster. That doesn't have much to do with your dad dying. No, they don't have to be related, but they have to be within the confines of the general structure of that story. So if it's Eat, Pray, Love, you guys know Eat, Pray, Love by Elizabeth Gilbert. The beginning when she's in Italy, it should be she would be brainstorming what everything that I remember from Italy. What happened at the airport? How did I go there? Where did I buy my ticket? Who did I go with? What happened when I arrived? Do I remember any dinners? You're pulling this. And this is where, again, AI is not going to know this. AI doesn't know your life. So in memoir, you have to do the structural stuff from your own brain, but you can do it in a way that has a pattern to it. So come up with 10. Also, don't be, so obsessed about 10. It should be at least 10. But if you get 15, do 15. If it's 20, do 20. If you can only get 8, take a break, sleep, wake up, drink coffee, meditate a little bit, but come up with 10. And so then what you're going to end up realizing is that you have your main story, your main inciting incident, the thing that happened that started the whole journey. Then you're going to have your climax. Then you're going to have your resolution. And then you usually have a final conclusion chapter. And so then if you have your 10, look at what you're doing here, all of a sudden you're at 14 chapters, which you could write 14 chapters is enough, really, to write a memoir. So what you do here is that once you have the 10, then start expanding upon them. Who was there? What happened? Where? Why was it important? Just really brainstorm. And this is a super shitty first draft. There's no right or wrong way to do it. Do it in whatever way you want. Do it with voice notes. Do it with any way that you want. Record yourself. It doesn't really matter. Then, once you have all of these, I want you to go back because now you're going to have all these different scenes. So you're going to have what's the inciting incident. You're going to have 10 different scenes. Some of them are going to be before, some of them are going to be after. We haven't ordered them yet, but there's going to be all these scenes. Now that you have the general picture, one thing that a lot of people don't do correctly with memoirs is that they don't, if you guys remember, there's a protagonist that has a goal, and then there's three things that are holding them back. Remember the three antagonists? The three types of the typical antagonist. You guys know what antagonist means? Antagonist is if I say it, it's almost giving it away. This could be a law on an island or trapped by whatever. It could be setting rules of your family or church, some overarching thing holding you back. What's the most obvious in action movie? Protagonist wants. This is often called the B story. You have the world that can stop you. You can have an outside force, a person, a villain that can stop you. What's the thing that usually holds all of us back from reaching our goals. They are ourselves, internal conflict. This is the basic structure of every story. So you're who's the protagonist and what's the goal? What does the protagonist want? This is a lot of movies or books fall flat, or sometimes it says this doesn't work, or I just you lost the reader. A lot of the times it's because you don't articulate the goal fast enough. So you need the protagonist to be obvious. You need to know what they want, and you need to be rooting for them. And then pretty quickly, you need to set up the thing that's holding them back. And usually it's always three things. There's something in the world, there's something in the rules, there's something about their situation, then there's a person or persons, and then there's their own internal vice or a false belief that they have. Usually a false belief, it's something that they believe that they're either not enough or this is the right way to do things, but it's actually the wrong way to do things. So here's my point. Let me connect the dots for you. So you're going to have this cluster. You have the resolution, you have the climax, you have the general theme, you have usually you have the inciting incident by now, and then you have a bunch of other scenes or things that have happened that you remember. We haven't gotten into putting the scenes in order, the final thing that you do, but you can start to see the story. It was gray and fuzzy and opaque. I can't really see it. But now you have 12, 13, 14 scenes. I understand what it is. What we haven't done is identified who the protagonist is in a memoir. So you're the protagonist, but what is the thing that you want? And this is oddly not as obvious as people think it is. Now that we know, just because you learned a lesson doesn't mean it's the big idea. The lesson is the theme. The lesson is the thing that people will take away, but that doesn't drive the plot because you don't know that lesson is the lesson until the end of the book. You can't have the lesson drive the plot forward. The plot needs a goal, an external goal. Does this make sense? You don't even know the external goal until you understand what do we have here? What are we looking at? This may feel philosophical. Come up with your 10 memories and expand the 10 memories or 12 or 15 or however many you have. And then once you have all of those, ask yourself, there was this inciting incident. What did I want? What was my goal? Why is the reader going to root for me? The goal in any story amplifies the stakes. It sets the stakes. So is it life or death? Is it love? Is it, am I going to win the race? Who cares if I win the race? Oh, if I win the race, then I'm going to get the scholarship. And if I get the scholarship, then I'm going to be able to take care of my family. You got to increase the stakes. This is also, I talked about this whenever I do copywriting, where you have to ask why should someone buy your book? It's because it's good. Why is it a good book? It'll teach them to be a great public speaker. Who cares if they're a great public speaker? They could be more persuasive. Like, who cares if they want to be persuasive? If they're not persuasive, then they're not going to be better in their career. Who cares if they're better in the career? The reason why they want to be, and then you got to ask why. And then eventually you're going to reach something to do with their family or their purpose of their life or helping other people. You have to get to the core reason why people are doing what they're doing. Ultimately, it's because they have some goal, which is why a lot of movies are just like life or death or love or loss or some of these universal themes everyone can relate to. They're the only thing that matters. Antagonist is the thing stopping her from reaching her goal. If her goal was to find love and be happy, what was the things that was stopping her from finding love and being happy? One of them was her current husband, so that's why she had to divorce him right away. One of them was her current job, so she left the job. One was New York City, so she left New York City. She removed a bunch of the barriers, which was is very risky. But then she goes off on this new world adventure. And so then what's the antagonist of the setting of Italy is she doesn't speak the language. She's in a new world. She's going to run out of money because she's not, working. She doesn't know anyone. She has no friends there. The antagonist was her playing a status game essentially in New York City, where she was doing things that other people told her she should want to do. She realized she should live her own life. She's a writer, traveler, and she's a free spirit, and she's an artist. And she was wrapped up in a bunch of stuff that she was doing essentially because society told her to do. And then that personifies itself with her current husband that she met in Indonesia. It was Italy, India, and Indonesia. That was the story. And anyways, there's that sold millions of copies, obviously. She's amazing. But But also it's episodic. Each one has a different through line. It's her own expectations of what she should be and the expectations of society of what she should be is ultimately she had to release that to become who she's supposed to be. The antagonist wasn't that she didn't want a traditional life. That's the inciting incident, holding me back from that goal. Let's take my wife, for example. One of the things that was holding me back was I was just an idiot college kid and was overly cocky and I was a little promiscuous. And another was that she had a boyfriend. So when I met my wife, she had a boyfriend. And the problems is you shouldn't court someone that has a boyfriend. There's this value structure problem. I could totally write that memoir, honestly. It would be pretty juicy. The goal was to find the one, be in love, and find happiness with a partner, which is a very universal thing. The inciting incident is I meet my now wife, but then the problem is she has a boyfriend, and I had been promiscuous, so I had this bad reputation. We're also in college, and we're from different areas. My family's from Ohio, and her family's from New Hampshire. There's an interesting story. It's like a love story. Are they going to get together, even though there's all these things that would be holding them back? And so now the genre that I would choose would be a love story or a romance, but it's told within the context of a memoir. Because I'm choosing romance for this example, there's certain beats that you already know that are going to have to be written in a love story. You can follow the general beat structure of a romance or love story while telling your memoir. I broke up with her because I thought I didn't have time for a girlfriend. I regretted that right away and spent a long time trying to get my wife back. My brain thought my career is more important or where I want to live is more important or whatever. If I was writing the lesson, who is the most important? Who, what, where, when, why, how? The lesson could be the who, your group of people that you're with is more important than anything else because life is long and life is going to have problems and there's going to be ups and downs, but it doesn't matter. The thing that matters most is who you're spending time with. At the time, I thought, oh, my career and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I don't have time for a girlfriend, but that was wrong. You get what I'm saying? You can reverse engineer that lesson. I have lots of stories, but I would choose the love and romance genre. So at the end, the big climax is, are they going to get together or not? So now it has plot. Otherwise, it's just like a series of vignettes that don't have any narrative drive. That makes sense. So then once you have that, put the scenes in chronological order. We talked about this in a previous lesson. It is possible to do flashbacks and you can be advanced about that. But if you do flashbacks, they should be to scenes in your life that explain the psychology of why you acted the way you did in the chronological version. So let's say you have these, 10, 12, 14 scenes, just put them in chronological order and write it that way. Now you can switch to AI because you have the scenes in chronological order and a chapter outline. If you want to get fancy, you could say, in this scene, I made this decision, right or wrong, and then flashbacks to things in your life that explain why you did what you did. Now, takes some pretty advanced self-awareness, but if you want to be a writer, you got to be self-aware and you got to be observant and understand what's going on. So that's the main lesson for today. This is essentially, I don't know if you guys want to take a little screenshot of this or whatever, but obviously we're going to upload this to your academy, but this is the order of what to do. And if you're coming to the bootcamp, we'll do this together. This is the general structure for how to approach it. You start with a story for all your nonfiction books, and maybe half of them can be personal stories. Or if you have a sales letter on your website, you can use hey, I was just like you, and these were my problems, and this is how I overcame it. I came up with this method, and you can use it too. Memoirs are great for that. Whether they're a full memoir or in a nonfiction book is powerful. The distribution doesn't matter as much. I should try anywhere where people have this problem.